Hi, I'm Aurora Espina. I'm researcher and activist. And today I am so happy to be the host of this inside review of the Institute for Democracy and Innovation, IDI. And I'm sure that our audience have heard a lot about climate change, the climate emergency we are facing around the world. And of course, you should have heard about Fridays for Climate and different actions that are made around the globe to tackle climate change. But what I am quite sure that you haven't heard is about this relation between artificial intelligence, blockchain, and NFTs, and what are those elements related with the actions to tackle climate change and to protect our climate. So for that reason, I am so honored and I'm so thrilled to be your host in this Inside Review, because we are talking today about Victoria ecosystems. And for that, we have as our guest, Gold Darr, which is the co-founder and CFO of Victoria Ecosystems. So please be welcome, Gold, and tell us more about who is Gold Darr and what are the reasons you are working and involved in Victoria Ecosystems.
Absolutely. First, thank you so much for having me, Aurora. I absolutely agree that this is a really interesting intersection of technology and the movement of people trying to protect the planet. And that is exactly what really got me involved with Victoria as well. So I come originally from a technology background as an engineer, and I made my way into the finance world because I realized engineers actually have a lot of solutions to problems, but getting the solutions implemented is significantly more difficult. And a lot of those blocks were either problems in how the finance world was treating innovation and what was really needed versus what was popular. And similarly, how that was really getting communicated out to people who were expressing interest in new innovations and new technologies and in new businesses. And so that's one of the reasons I so appreciate what you do and what activists do, because I think that people really underestimate the importance that, the voice for the change that's going to come, for the new businesses that are going to succeed, really is driven by people, which in turn drives finance, which really drives change. There's plenty of things waiting out there to save the world that really have to get pulled instead of pushed into place. So thank you for, the work that you're doing in that. And that's also what Victoria is doing, is Victoria is doing its part to build a technology company that protects nature and can really do so very scalably in a way that individuals can really interact with, and not just big organizations. There are, of course, a number of really great groups that are doing fantastic work in very specific sectors of the world where maybe there's endangered species or endangered forests. And Victoria is pretty unique because it's using advanced state-of-the-art technology to be able to work with both those established groups and problems, but also much smaller slices all around the globe that it really takes for everyone to be involved in a solution.
So in this case, how can you define what is Victoria Ecosystems and why is it relevant to talk about this work you're doing in Victoria Ecosystems?
Yeah, it's most fundamental. Victoria Ecosystems is a technology company that is protecting and regenerating the planet and its territory. So we do that for both land and water. And what's really unique about Victoria is where a lot of really any efforts that are going on in this space are kind of focused on buying land, and we'll assume that that protects it. Anybody who has a yard knows that usually owning it is the first step of the problem, and then you have to maintain the yard, right? And the same is true with any, property, with any animals, with any biodiversity all around the world. So Victoria's focus is using technology each year to actually make sure that that work continues and that it expands. And so to do that, instead of focusing on buying all the property, we use like an Airbnb model to make sure that everyone can take the biodiversity in their area and ensure that it's properly cared for.
That sounds like really interesting on how to get involved with these new technologies and new like market ideas that are nowadays, but to traduce them in sustainable way. And I could say a very smart way of how to use this technology to gather people together in order to get involved in taking action for tackling climate change and protecting the environment in a very non-conventional way. So in order to get to know more about these areas of action, could you tell us more about what is Victorialand in your work?
Absolutely. So Victoria Land is the part of Victoria ecosystems that we're launching in the next couple of months that really gives everyone a chance to participate. And that's just the part where the crypto comes in. So we're using blockchain technology for two big purposes. One is run the data. So Victoria Land is where we take, a piece of an ecosystem, whether it's on land or whether it's an ocean, and we create a digital copy of it. And we turn that into a non-fungible token, an NFT, and we allow people to buy into that, to become a member in Victoria's ecosystem. That protects that ecosystem and it pays for its visualization. And then from that, we can actually create other things like offsets that companies buy. And so that actually adds value back into the ecosystem. It allows and pays for those ecosystems to be regenerated and improved over time. And it also allows us to give kickbacks to people who are in the Victoria Land ecosystem and are members in that. And on a related note, Christopher, our CEO, throws great parties. And so the Victoria Land ecosystem also has this camaraderie. We take advantage of some of that metaverse aspects to do cool things like the NFT that you own might be used in a video game or in a music video, or, like have ways to do that kind of socialization, both in real life at places like castles and in the virtual space that's obviously more inclusive and sustainable because it doesn't involve travel. So it really allows us to bring the Victoria ecosystem to everyone, right? And so we're releasing these NFTs in all different sizes. So if you're interested in a particular type of ecosystem that you want to protect, or a particular place that maybe is close to home, because we're already in 5 going on 6 countries now, then that kind of gives people a chance to look around and see as they look to then future collections of Victoria Land, which are going to expand that all around the world.
So that actually gives you the opportunity to own an NFT, but at the same time to cooperate to protect the environment. And I think that's like quite interesting because there is a lack of concrete actions on how we can manage to protect the environment. And many times there are, for example, land in different parts of the world. And I could talk about, for example, in the case of Mexico, there is a land who has multiple owners, but those multiple owners don't have precisely the resources to protect that piece of land. So that's why I find like really interesting this combination of technology, so that everyone can be part of it and can cooperate in this way to manage how to protect environment and to contribute even in your more nearest area. So that's what I found like quite interesting about what you are doing. And I think other thing that is very interesting about this is that you can find a way that different generations gather together in this action. So there is a specific niche of people who is really young and gets to know more about what is blockchain, NFTs, and other kind of technology. But you also have like an old school let's say, generation that is not quite involved with these kind of technologies, but it's getting to know about a quite interesting program. So that our audience could get to know more about what is involved in what are you doing with Victoria ecosystems and Victoria land. Can you tell us more about what is the data science behind Victoria?
Yes, absolutely. So, the biggest question that you as an activist probably have is like, how do I know where to put my time? How do I know when what I wanted to happen is actually happening? And like you remarked with the property in Mexico, sometimes that's actually a pretty difficult question. There's a lot of groups that are doing tree planting, right? And so what they kind of tell you is, well, we plant a tree, and so that means over its whole lifetime, it's, going to sequester this amount of carbon. And that's the argument they make to plant the tree. And, you're an activist, so you're probably aware, like, don't get me wrong, obviously planting trees is great. We support doing this. But the reality is that you can't just plant a tree and expect that it's going to live the next 40 years. Like, someone needs to guard that tree. And then someone needs to be able to tell you, as the person who helps them plant it, that that's actually happening. So we're doing that through a process we're calling decentralized environmental verification, which basically means that we're allowing everyone to participate, as well as using technology like satellite imagery, like LiDAR, which is taken with, little drones that you can fly all around these properties, as well as nonprofit groups and boots on ground. And these different things combine to give us an accurate picture on an ongoing basis. So we know, like, cool, here's the existing ecosystem, here were the new trees that are planted, or the new bees that were introduced to help pollinate this area. Whatever kind of improvements are being made to that ecosystem, we're then monitoring that activity, and we're storing it in blockchain. So when a lot of people think of crypto, they think of like the tokens and the currency, and like that is a cool piece of it, obviously. And it's part of why we want to use that, because, the sustainability movement is driven in a large part by young people, and young people want to participate in decentralized finance. And so it makes sense to do that with crypto, because crypto is kind of our currency in a lot of ways. But the real power of blockchain, which is what people think of with crypto, is actually in the data and in the data structure. Because what blockchain does is it allows you to make like a permanent record of something, more like carving it into stone or diamond. Like, nobody is changing what is in the blockchain. And so that's really, really helpful, because we then know when we pass that record along to you as the person with the NFT that's protecting this territory, this is exactly what happened. And if you sell it to someone who maybe cares less about conservation, but is interested in the fact that it's a growing industry and it's profitable in some ways, and they sell it off to someone else who also cares less, it doesn't matter that that's changed hands. That information is still valid. And you, as the person who originally financed that, can still look it up and know that this is happening, and that the good you wanted to do is being done, regardless of whose hands it goes to next. And that is important. Right now, nothing in our monitoring or auditing or financial or even government systems is really making sure that when money goes to sustainability, that it's resulting in sustainability. And we are going to do that. We are doing that right now.
I think that is quite important in the process, because I'm not quite sure that transparency is always part of the process, and always this fact checking that the things you have promised to do are actually being done. And that is, for example, what I see, which is the most important thing about involving blockchain technology with all this environment behind what you are working, this data science, because it also makes your company a more trusted one in the issue of environmental care, because you are giving this, I think the Victoria Land, for example, experience is a gamifying experience, which is quite interesting, and it's like really catchy in the way that it really calls you to do something. And involving that with the blockchain technology, it assures that at the same time you are having a good time experiencing this process of environmental care, you at the same time you are assuring that these efforts you are putting on this project specifically are going to a good end.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, this planet is our home. It's a reasonable expectation that we should be able to say, I want to put my money where my heart is. I want it to be better. I want it to know that I got what I paid for. And I want to do it with friends and with people who share the same, vision of what the future should look like. And we are all about facilitating that.
Yes, and also it's a space where everybody could gather together and participate and collaborate and cooperate, and at the same time you are doing something because, as you said, well, this is our planet, this is our home, and there is no B home or B planet. So
absolutely. No, it's very, very true. And so, like, of all the financing options and the information on what people are choosing to do with, kind of placing investments, the thrill of playing with the stock market is just not shared a lot by this generation, because I think it's pretty easy to see how detrimental a lot of those potential gains are. And so, this is exactly the sort of opportunity to use a form of finance that is rebellious inherently to fund like an actual habitable future. And that is the best use of how we can say we want to plan for the future, both financially and very literally with the ground underneath our feet. And we also want to see, people participating on an individual basis. One of the things that we are introducing this week actually are a new form of offset. So one of those revenue streams that we then attach to those underlying ecosystems, which is food insecurity. And it's really looking at regenerative agriculture as well. And so, that's where we really want to start seeing people contribute by saying, wait, like I have a small slice of land that's available to me. And maybe that's something in a yard if they are able to, participate in land outside of the cities. But even in cities, like maybe that's a rooftop, maybe that's the center of an apartment building where you live. Like, one of the amazing things about Victoria ecosystems and about Victoria land and how it can finance the growth of places that are currently barren is that when you look around you, you should see how much more green should be there, how many more bees and pollinators, how many more, species and wildlife biodiversity could be in that property. And we can help you make that happen. There shouldn't be any land that's off limits from that. It should be the question of, where we're expanding nature instead of where we're expanding concrete.
Well, that gives you like a very huge perspective of what could be done with Victoria ecosystems and particularly with Victoria land, because well, as you said, now there is no limit. So that's what makes very interesting the project, that everybody can participate, and of course that you can propose another kind of land that could be part of the project. So thank you very much for giving us this broad information about what you're doing in Victoria ecosystems. It has been like very interesting to know more about what you are doing, and it actually gives kind of a new bright perspective and hope that there is or there are new ways of tackling climate change and to cooperate in very diverse ways, but particularly how can we use technology to improve our lives, and of course improve the lives of those who are around us, and also with the invite to be part of this project. So how can we participate if we want to
Yes.
be part of Victoria?
Absolutely. You can go to Victoria Lands and you can look up the launch that we're doing of the NFTs for the first set of underlying properties. There's some really cool projects in there all around the world. One of my favorites, if I'm allowed to play favorites, is that we're participating in the Great Green Wall project in Africa, which is really interesting because the goal of that project isn't just to plant trees, it's to stop the spread of the Sahara Desert. And so we're going to be looking both then at canopy creation, but also the soil, because the spread of the desert is really about the root systems, which is very cool. So you can go to Victoria Land and you can register for the upcoming release of the NFT launch that we're doing in partnership with the Elron Network. It's a great underlying technology network that was already coming in at being carbon neutral. So a wonderful partner for Victoria. So either of our websites will pull that up, and we'd love to have more champions for the planet.
Well, thank you very much, Gold, and for giving us a little of your time to share about Victoria ecosystems at Victoria Land and all the data science behind your work. We are very honored to have you in this inside review to know more about Victoria ecosystems. So for those in the audience who are interested in getting to know more about Victoria ecosystems and how to be part of it, we could share the information so that you could be part of this amazing project. And we are looking very soon for another inside review with the Institute for Democracy and Innovation. Thank you very much, Gold, and it's been such a pleasure.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine. Have an excellent day.
You too. Bye.